why you can't feel it when manifesting, and how to finally overcome it. Let me ask you something. If manifestation is all about feeling it real, why is it that so many people understand the teachings, repeat the affirmations, visualize every night, and still can't feel a thing? Why does it seem like the emotion everyone talks about, that surge of certainty, gratitude, and alignment, just isn't there for you? Could it be that the very effort to feel is what's actually blocking you from it? In the next few minutes, you're going to see this process in a way that goes far deeper than simple techniques. You'll discover the real reason why you feel emotionally disconnected during manifestation, not because you're doing it wrong, but because your nervous system, your subconscious, and your energy are not speaking the same language. We'll break down how your body suppresses emotion after years of mental overcontrol, how your mind unknowingly resists what it claims to desire, and how you can finally reconnect to the emotional current that makes creation possible. Here's the promise of this video. By the end, you will understand why you can't feel it yet, what that really means about your inner state, and most importantly, how to bridge the gap between intellectual belief and emotional embodiment. Because the truth is, you don't manifest what you think about, you manifest what you feel real. When you reconnect thought and emotion, creation stops being a mental exercise and becomes an energetic experience. If you turn away now, you'll stay trapped in what most people never escape: mental manifestation. You'll continue cycling between hope and disappointment, knowledge and frustration, wondering why nothing changes even though you know it all. But if you stay, you'll see what very few understand, that the missing link isn't knowledge, it's embodiment. And once you feel it, you'll never go back to manifesting from the mind again. So before we dive deeper, I want you to take a conscious step right now. Write in the comments, "I feel it now." Because from this moment forward, you're not just learning about manifestation, you're reclaiming the feeling that makes it real. The hidden numbness behind manifestation. You're not broken. You're not blocked. You're simply disconnected from the emotional current that makes creation tangible. Most people don't fail at manifesting because they lack belief. They fail because they've lost sensitivity. The nervous system, conditioned by years of suppression and overthinking, becomes numb. It protects you from pain, but in doing so, it also protects you from joy, desire, and imagination. The same shield that kept you safe from past wounds now prevents you from feeling it real. This numbness is subtle. It doesn't mean you don't care about your desire. It means your body has forgotten how to respond to it. When you visualize, you see the image clearly, but it's lifeless, like watching a movie in silence. You say the affirmations, but they feel mechanical. You reach for emotion, but it doesn't rise. The heart seems quiet, and you start to believe that something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong. Your emotional receptors are simply shut down by conditioning. Science explains this perfectly. When the body experiences prolonged stress, the brain's limbic system reduces emotional responsiveness to protect you from overload. Over time, your nervous system learns to stay in this muted state, associating emotional intensity with danger. That's why when you try to feel it real, the body resists. It's not that you can't feel, it's that you were trained not to. You've spent years surviving in thought, and now you're trying to create from feeling. Neville Goddard said, "Feeling is the secret." He didn't mean emotion forced by willpower. He meant the natural aliveness of being that emerges when imagination becomes believable. But belief can't enter a body that's still guarded. To feel the wish fulfilled, the body must first feel safe. Without safety, imagination is filtered through fear. Without relaxation, belief becomes mental effort. So the first step is not to feel more. It's to restore your capacity to feel it all. You must reintroduce the nervous system to safety, to stillness, to openness. That is the soil where manifestation grows. You can't plant seeds in frozen ground. The numbness you feel is not a failure. It's a signal. It's your body saying, before we create, we must reconnect. When you understand this, compassion replaces frustration. You stop judging yourself for not feeling enough, and you begin gently awakening your senses again. Because true manifestation doesn't start with imagination. It starts with reconnection. The overthinking trap. When the mind replaces the heart. Most people trying to manifest live entirely in their heads. They analyze, repeat, calculate, and dissect every spiritual principle, hoping that understanding will lead to transformation. But manifestation doesn't happen through logic. It happens through resonance. The more you think, the less you feel. The more you analyze, the farther you drift from the state of being that creates. Overthinking is not awareness. It is resistance disguised as control. The mind loves to dominate because it fears surrender. It believes that if it can figure everything out, it can stay safe. So even when you visualize, the mind tries to manage it, evaluating how real it feels, comparing today's session to yesterday's, questioning whether you're doing it right. Each of those thoughts pulls you out of the feeling state and back into the intellect. You can't feel it real while judging whether you're feeling it right. Neuroscience shows that when the analytical mind is hyperactive, the emotional centers in the limbic system deactivate. This means your own analysis physically suppresses your ability to feel. Your prefrontal cortex becomes overengaged, blocking the flow between thought and sensation. You become trapped in cognition, mentally aware of what you want but emotionally disconnected from it. The bridge between idea and experience collapses. Neville Goddard described imagination as the creative power of God within man, but he also said that it works only when the senses are inwardly engaged, not intellectually observed. The thinker must become the experiencer. The moment you step into the scene and let it move through you, you reconnect to the divine current that thought alone can't access. The Bible echoes this wisdom. Be still and know that I am God. Stillness is not emptiness, it's the quieting of mental noise so the deeper truth can be felt. You don't find faith by thinking harder. You find it by letting the heart take the lead. Overthinking is a form of spiritual pride, believing that you can calculate what only intuition can reveal. To manifest, you must return to simplicity, the childlike state that feels without analysis, trusts without explanation, and imagines without limits. The more you try to control the process, the less you allow creation to flow through you. The mind was made to serve the heart, not replace it. When the intellect surrenders, the feeling returns. When thought bows to awareness, manifestation begins. Neville's secret, the missing bridge between thought and emotion. Most people misinterpret Neville Goddard's famous phrase, "Feeling is the secret." They think it means they must generate intense emotion, as if the universe responds only to dramatic waves of passion. But Neville was not talking about emotional force. He was speaking of embodied conviction. Feeling, in his teachings, meant the full acceptance that what you desire is already real. Not imagined as a distant dream, but accepted as a living truth within you. The bridge between thought and emotion is belief. Without belief, thoughts remain hollow. Without feeling, beliefs remain abstract. The secret is not to push harder for emotion, but to dissolve disbelief. When resistance fades, emotion rises naturally. It's the difference between trying to create warmth by forcing your body to shiver versus simply stepping into the sunlight. You don't have to generate feeling. You have to remove what blocks it. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption." But how can you assume if the heart is closed? The answer lies in the imagination itself. When you imagine, you are not escaping reality. You are shifting to a deeper level of it. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what's physical and what's vividly imagined. It responds to the feeling of reality. The mind creates the picture, but the heart gives it life. Together they build the bridge where manifestation flows. Modern neuroscience supports this truth. Studies on mental rehearsal show that the brain and body respond to imagined experiences almost identically to real ones. When a pianist visualizes practice, the same neural pathways activate as if they were physically playing. Manifestation is the same process. It's mental rehearsal imbued with emotional authenticity. The moment you feel your desire is already true, your brain begins rewiring your body to match it. But most people never reach that bridge because they remain split, thinking one thing and feeling another. They imagine success but feel lack. They speak affirmations but sense doubt. Neville's teaching was never about pretending. It was about embodying. The key is coherence, alignment between thought, belief, and emotion. When the three move as one, creation becomes inevitable. This is the secret few understand. Feeling cannot be faked, but it can be awakened. It awakens when you stop forcing and start believing, when you stop visualizing as an observer and begin living as the one who already has. That is the missing bridge between thought and emotion. and the doorway to manifestation that feels alive. The body remembers how past trauma silences desire. When you can't feel it, it isn't because your manifestation practice is weak. It's because your body is still remembering something your mind has tried to forget. Emotionally, the past never disappears. It becomes coded into your nervous system. Every time you were disappointed, betrayed, or told your desires were unrealistic, that emotion was stored within your body as data, as proof that feeling deeply is unsafe. The subconscious learned to protect you by dulling your capacity to feel. You cannot manifest while living in emotional survival. When the body senses threat, it prioritizes protection over creation. The nervous system interprets new desires as potential danger. Because every past disappointment left an imprint of pain. You try to visualize wealth, but your body associates wanting with loss. You affirm love, but your chest tightens because love once meant hurt. Your body isn't against you, it's loyal to you. It remembers every wound and tries to keep you safe, even at the cost of your expansion. Neuroscience now shows that trauma rewires the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, creating hypersensitivity to potential pain. Spiritual teachers have known this intuitively for centuries. Neville called it states of consciousness, the Bible calls it old man, the identity built on memory and fear. To awaken the new man, you must release the body from the patterns of the old. This release doesn't happen by thinking differently, it happens by feeling safely again. Breathwork, stillness, prayer, and forgiveness signal the nervous system that it is no longer in danger. As the body relaxes, feeling returns. This is why Jesus said, "Be made whole." Wholeness means integration, when thought, heart, and body move in harmony. The reason you can't feel it yet isn't a lack of faith. It's the body still guarding the gates of emotion. Once it feels safe, desire flows again. You don't need to force it. You need to remind the body it's safe to dream. The science of emotional resonance. When imagination becomes real to you, your body responds as if it's already happening. That is emotional resonance. The human brain doesn't distinguish much between vividly imagined experiences and physical ones. When you imagine a scene of fulfillment and truly feel it, your neurons fire in the same pattern they would if the event were happening now. This is the secret behind Neville's end scene. The body becomes the bridge that brings the unseen into form. But when you can't feel it, the signal is weak. Emotion is the amplifier of thought, and without it, manifestation loses its charge. The subconscious speaks in emotion, not words. You can repeat affirmations 1,000 times, but until they are felt, they remain surface noise. Science confirms what spirituality has always taught. The electromagnetic field of the heart is thousands of times stronger than that of the brain. Emotion shapes frequency, and frequency attracts corresponding reality. When your emotion and thought are coherent, when they agree, the vibration becomes consistent and creation follows naturally. This is why pretending doesn't work. Pretending creates incoherence. You say, "I am abundant," but feel fear. You declare, "I am loved," but feel unworthy. The signal contradicts itself. True manifestation happens when belief and emotion synchronize, not forced but aligned. Emotion is not a side effect of belief. It is its proof. When you truly believe something, you feel it. When you feel it, the body becomes the instrument through which reality tunes itself to you. Why spiritual effort creates resistance. Trying too hard to believe is still unbelief. Every effort to force feeling reinforces the idea that you don't already have it. The harder you try, the more you vibrate in the state of absence. This is the paradox that traps so many. They push for spiritual results with the same tension they use to chase material ones. But faith in its purest form is rest. Ray Dalio calls it radical acceptance. Neville called it surrender. The Bible calls it trust. Each describes the same principle, that effort belongs to the ego, while creation belongs to spirit. The more you try to control the process, the more you block it. When you force yourself to feel, your nervous system enters resistance. The mind demands evidence before it allows emotion, but emotion comes first. The seed doesn't sprout because you strain it. It sprouts because the soil and conditions are right. The same applies to manifestation. Feeling is not manufactured. It is allowed, so stop trying to believe. Instead, rest in the assumption that what you desire already is. Let imagination do the work. Let the body soften. Let the emotion rise naturally. True power is not in striving, but in allowing. The biblical code of faith and feeling. Faith has never been about thought. It is the marriage of conviction and surrender. When Jesus said, "According to your faith be it unto you," he wasn't speaking of intellectual agreement but emotional embodiment. Faith is the state of already having before seeing, the quiet confidence that reality has already bent in your favor. The Bible is full of examples that reveal this code. Abraham believed God, and it was counted unto him as righteousness. Belief is righteousness, right alignment between inner and outer worlds. The woman who touched the hem of Christ's garment was healed not by his awareness but by her own conviction. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Neurotheology now shows that prayer and faith alter the limbic brain, calming fear responses and expanding creative capacity. In simple terms, faith changes your chemistry, feeling changes your body, and your body, once changed, becomes a new transmitter of reality. Faith isn't begging God. It's becoming one with His promise. It's not waiting for evidence but acting from completion. Faith lives where thought and feeling merge into certainty, the two selves, the thinker and the feeler. Inside you live two selves, the thinker and the feeler. The thinker is your conscious mind, analytical and logical, always strategizing. The feeler is your subconscious, emotional and magnetic, always responding. Manifestation only happens when the thinker instructs the feeler in the language it understands, feeling. You can tell yourself you are wealthy, loved and healed, but if the feeler does not sense it as true, the command is never received. The thinker writes the script, the feeler performs it. Alignment is achieved when both selves speak the same language. Neville said the conscious mind is the male principle, giving direction, while the subconscious is the female principle, conceiving the idea. Creation requires union. Without emotional conception, mental seed remains barren. Your task is not to suppress thought, but to harmonize it with emotion. When the mind imagines lovingly and the body feels peacefully, the two selves become one, and creation begins. The frequency of surrender. Surrender is not weakness. It's alignment with divine rhythm. The moment you release control, energy begins to flow. Manifestation doesn't respond to tension. It responds to coherence. Dalio calls this embracing reality. Neville called it letting the end take care of itself. Scripture calls it resting in God. All point to the same truth. The moment you stop demanding and start trusting, the unseen begins to arrange itself. Surrender activates emotion because it relaxes the nervous system. When the mind stops gripping, the heart begins to open. Feeling arises naturally in stillness. The energy that was once trapped in control becomes the current that moves creation. The emotional memory reset. To feel again, you must make the body a safe place for emotion. Emotional numbness is not a lack of ability. It's a learned response. Through practices like breathwork, visualization, and forgiveness, the nervous system resets. Safety returns, and with it, sensitivity. Imagine holding the memory of your desire not as something to chase, but as something already given. Breathe into it. Let the body soften. Let gratitude replace striving. Each breath rewires your system toward trust. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. Scripture calls it renewal of the mind. Both describe rebirth. The mirror effect. Why you only attract what you radiate. The world doesn't respond to what you say. It mirrors what you are. If you speak abundance but feel lack, the reflection remains lack. Emotion is the signal the universe reads. Every external experience is an echo of your inner state. This is why Jesus said, "As you believe, so shall it be done unto you." Not as you wish, but as you believe, as you feel. Change the inner vibration and the outer reflection must follow. You cannot fool the mirror. You can only transform yourself before it. The practice of inner sensory reconnection. To restore feeling, you must reawaken your senses inwardly. Close your eyes and engage imagination not as a thinker, but as a participant. See the scene through your eyes, hear the sounds, touch the textures, breathe the air. This activates the sensory cortex and makes the imagined experience neurologically real. Neville's living in the end works because it engages all senses. The more vivid the sensory detail, the stronger the emotional imprint. This isn't fantasy, it's neuroconditioning. You are teaching the brain to believe before seeing. The comment activation, I feel it now. At this moment, write in the comments, I feel it now. This simple phrase is not just interactions, it's activation. By declaring it, you instruct the subconscious to accept feeling as present. Words become anchors for embodiment. Each repetition strengthens the bridge between imagination and reality. The state of natural knowing. When you truly feel, effort disappears. You no longer try to believe, you simply know. This is the state of natural faith where emotion and thought merge into peace. It is not excitement. It is certainty. You stop looking for signs because you have become one. The body, the mind, and the spirit move as one rhythm. Creation flows effortlessly because it is no longer sought. It is expressed. This is the state Neville called the Sabbath. It is rest in fulfillment, the rebirth of emotion. We began with a question. Why can't you feel it when manifesting? The answer was never about failure, but about disconnection. You learned how numbness forms, how overthinking blocks the heart, how trauma silences emotion, and how feeling is restored through surrender and safety. Now you understand that manifestation is not a mental game. It is an emotional resurrection. Faith is not belief without evidence. It is the embodiment of evidence before sight. When you feel, you create. Remember the balance of the seed. Without water, it dies. With too much, it drowns. Feeling works the same. You don't need to flood it with effort nor starve it with neglect. The right measure, steady, peaceful, alive, makes it grow. This is your rebirth of emotion. You are not waiting for the feeling to come. You are the one allowing it to awaken. Type in the comments, I feel it now. Because the moment you do, your manifestation stops being a wish and becomes a living reality.